Good day, everyone. My name is Rainier Ruiz Anunciado. So now let's talk about what is pistol and revolver. First, let's define what is pistol and revolver. So a revolver is a pistol, but a pistol is not necessarily a revolver. Simple, but a pistol is a gun that is designed to be operated by one hand. And another name for a pistol is handgun. A revolver is a specific type of a pistol that carries its rounds in a revolving cylinder, which lines up with the barrel to be fired. Most pistols nowadays are automatic pistols that feed rounds into the firing chamber from a spring-loaded magazine, usually resides into a pistol grip. Revolvers are generally considered safer and more reliable, but automatics are cheaper, easier to use and maintain, and require less training. Now, let's move on to the parts and function of a pistol and revolver. So first, parts of a pistol is front sight. So a front sight through which the object and aim at may be set in distinction from one side or hides the object. So second is a barrel. Barrel is a business end of any firearm. It is typically made of heavy-duty material to take on the abuse of imperated on the assemble by the forces involved. Barrels also are rippled along their internal wall to impart a rotation into existing projectile, thus providing inherent stability and therefore aiding in accuracy. And third is a slide stop. Slide stop, sometimes referred to as a slides lock or slides release on a semi-automatic handgun, is a function that visually indicates when a handgun has an expanded coil or loaded ammunition and facilitates faster reloading by pulling back the slide or depressing the slide lock to advance the first round a new magazine. So, fourth is a rear sight. Rear sight is similar to the forward sight and it is used for aiming. It is typically slightly more advanced and it is designed than the front sight depending on the gun model. The rear sight is used to align the weapon with the front sight and direct the muzzle of the gun towards to the target. So, five is the five parts of a pistol is the hammer. So the hammer is a part of a firearm that is used to strike the percussion cap, primer, or a separate firing pin to ignite the propellant and fire the projectile. And it is so called due to the fact that is a resemblance a hammer, a both form and function. So, in firearms, a safety or a safety catch is mechanism used to help prevent accidental discharge of a firearm, helping to ensure safer handling. Some firearms is manufactured after the late of 1990s or include mandatory integral locking mechanism that must be deactivated by a unique key before the gun can be fired. So, what is grip? Grip is a use by the operator's dominant hand shooting And for holding and the handgun, a typical hold involves both hands, one wrap around the grip and the other around both the grip and dominant hand. And, and now, let's proceed to the parts and function of a revolver. So first is a front sight. Front sight is through which the objects aim to may be seen in the detention from one that hides an object. Next is a barrel. Barrel is a business end of any firearm. It is typically made of heavy-duty material to take on the abuse of imparted on the assembly by the force involved. Barrel also are repiled along their external wall into impart a rotation onto the existing projectile, those providing inherent stability and therefore aiding an accuracy. Next is cylinder. Cylinder means it is fixed and is competently removable, which means you have to load and entirely by hands. Next is a rear sight. Rear sight is a similar to forward sight and it's used for aiming. It is a typically slightly more advanced and its design than the front sight depending on the gun and model. So the rear sight is used to align the weapon with the front sight and direct the muzzle of the gun towards to the target. Next is the hammer. Hammer means it is a part of a firearm that is used to strike the percussion cap, primer, or a separate firing pin, and to ignite the propellant and fire the projectile. It is so called due to the fact that it resembles a hammer in both from a function. Next is a cylinder release. So cylinder release device is generally relocated on the left or rear of the frame, whereas a single action revolvers, the loading gate is located on the right. By manipulating the release device, the cylinder by well unlock and swing out to the left of the firearm. Next is the back strap or the back strap. The back strap frame allows to the user to the change the circumstances of the grip to the fit their individual hand size. The magazine catch of the G4 frame is reversible in enlarged toward the rear of the pistol. Next is the grip. The grip is used by the operator's dominant and shooting hand for holding the gun. A typically hold involves both hands and one wrap around the grip and the other around both the grip and dominant hand. Next is a trigger. Trigger means is the lever used to manage the firing function of the weapon. Many modern guns rely on a double action. Trigger meaning of the simple act of pulling trigger. So cause the hammer striker to be cocked and released in action. Next is a trigger guard. Trigger guard is a fixed ring set around the exposed parts of a trigger lever. This only partially protects the firearm from discharging accidentally when kept drawn in from a holster. So next is a ejector rod. Ejector rod, when the revolver loaded, it's a cartridge rim rests against the extractor. So after the last round is fired, the cylinder release is pressed and cylinder swing out to the side. So the extractor force is all the spin cartridge from the cylinder at the same time. And the last is a muzzle. So the muzzle is the business end of the barrel assembly, the last part of a gun that the existing ballast touches or bullet touches. Some barrels come treated to accept as silencer or suppressor. Many gun models are marketed in the different barrel lengths, which also meant that the frame and slide of the gun must be lighting to match. And that's all the parts and the function of the revolver. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a pistol? So, the advantages of a pistol is often have a higher magazine capacity as much as their times the size of a revolvers. This is helpful in that you don't have to reload as much, which means fewer interruptions when shooting. So when a pistol jumps, you can clear it in a second. On the contrary, when a revolver binds, you may not be able to clear it easily. The safety is also one of the biggest advantages of a pistol. It won't fire when dropped or even when the trigger as long as the day safety is on. And day safety is also one of the biggest advantages of a pistol. It won't fire when dropped or even when triggered as long as the safety is on. They're lightweight and concealable. You can carry them everywhere. They're allow the AC to fire when need are size. So pistols are all about accessibility to their great for self-defense purposes. They're quick, affordable, too, so anyone can have a pistol. So the disadvantages of a pistol is when comparing a revolver versus pistol, you see that the latter has more moving parts, they much more complicated, which leads to the higher risk of mechanical failures. And plus, the spirings are heavier, so weaker user might find it hard to pull the trigger, and although they have a bigger capacity than revolvers, they still have a shorter magazine than replace. The possibility to run out of ammo is still there because of a smaller grip surface. You also have a less control. You can only use it for short range to it is doesn't work well for away how far away of a target. And now, what is a revolver? The disadvantages and advantages. So revolver advantages. So when revolvers, you don't have to push some buttons or levers and manipulate the gun behind pulling the trigger. It is efficient. You don't have anything to forget to do before firing aside from putting bullets, of course. So this cam is handy when faced with a new tense situation. Even the experienced gun owners might forget to take the safety off. For instance, the heavy trigger can also be an advantage in this situation as you won't be able to fire because of being injury or I mean jumping. Revolvers are pretty durable and reliable. As well, they're not known for having frequent mechanical failures and they can shoot a much of wider range of ammunition. And the disadvantages of a revolver is it most obvious con is that it has a lower reload time after 5 to 6 or even 7 shoots. You have to reload the bullets once by the into a revolver. Make sure to never drop a revolver to they much more prone to firing accidentally when dropped. In generally, they require more skills to fire accurately. To recall isn't something to write home about either. And that's all the disadvantages of revolver. And that's all for today. Thank you. The next is magazine. Magazine is an ammunition storage and feeding device for a repeating firearm, either integral within the gun or internal fixed magazine or external attach. Disable the magazine. Uh, the next is magazine release. Magazine release is a magazine is used to the eject the magazine from the grip of the handgun. And next is trigger. Trigger is the lever used to manage the firing function of the weapon. Many modern guns rely on a double action. Trigger meaning the simple act of pulling the trigger causes the hammer striker to be cocked and released in one action. And the next is disassemble lever. A decocker or manual decocking lever allows to the hammer to be dropped on a lead cartridge without rest of discharging it, and usually by blocking the hammer or retracting or covering the firing pin before releasing the sear. Next is a slide. Slide means it is the complete assemble that houses the upper section of the weapon. This assembly is of a metal to withstand the harsh forces at play within the gun is fired. The slide usually contains a right pattern for gripping and is pulled back manually to load the gun. In subsequent shoots, the slide is automatically recalled and it is part of the mechanism used to introduce a fresh cartridge from the magazine into the firing chamber. And that's all the parts and function of a pistol.